Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, I'd like to do a follow-up video based on that recent video I posted talking about the woke movement in the Philippines. Now, I got a lot of engagement in that video. A lot of people left some very interesting, good comments. And some of these comments, I think they left some very good, valid points. And I think they are worth sharing. I'm going to go ahead and read one comment. He's got quite a list here. I'd like to go through them. And in the process, I'm also going to share my opinion based on the comment that he left. Now, for those of you who have not watched the video, I hope you can watch the video so you can get a little bit of an idea what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna just give a little bit of a summary of what I talked about in that video. On that video, I talked about the woke movement in the Philippines, how it's already reached the horizons of the country. Some people agreed, some people disagreed, some people are in denial that it's happening in the country, but it is happening in the country. Now, I do agree that there is a variation. It's not quite the same, you know. There's a difference between the wokeness here in the US and in the Philippines. And also, we also have to remember that, you know, it's just starting there. I think here in the US, we've gone a little bit too far. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read his comment. I'm not sure if I should be sharing his handle name, but I'm sure he will realize this is his comment. So he said, there are a few very big differences between wokeness in the Philippines and in the West. Living in the Philippines, I have seen the following. So the first one, he said, the legal system and laws are not overtly anti-male like the West. I agree. I agree with this one. So the next one, he said, most liberated Filipinas are not man haters. They just want more equal standing for women, with which most Western men have no problem. Okay, so I do agree, but I have a follow up on that one. So I agree. Um, Even the most liberated Filipinas are very open about wanting to get married, wanting to have children, wanting to have a family. They do appreciate a man who is strong, who can lead a family. And there's really not that kind of animosity. Like here in the US, there's this animosity against men. And it's a very different vibe. Over there in the Philippines, it's not quite like that. But there is definitely a rising modern feminism in the country. And I think even here in the US, of course, this is my personal opinion. I don't think it started that way. I mean, at least 10 years ago, I have not heard of a lot of this, maybe because we did not have social media back then as well. But you know, it's not the same culture, you know. I don't think it started that way, like women just start hating the men. It's not quite like that even here in the US, like, you know, at least 2 decades ago. But obviously, that's the progression, right? But in the Philippines, you will not get that kind of vibe. You know, there's no hate there. Even the most liberal Filipinas do agree that, you know, they want a strong man, a man who has that, you know, masculinity, a man who can lead the family. They appreciate that, okay? I do agree with him with that one. All right, number three. He said the schools and universities do not overtly teach that men are garbage and evil. This reminded me of that singer, Taylor Swift, when she went viral for her screaming on one of her concerts when she said F the patriarchy. You are correct. You're not gonna hear that kind of teaching in schools, especially in provinces. I mean, there is still a lot of respect given to grandfathers, fathers, brothers. And so that's not something they're gonna teach in school. But there is definitely a movement when it comes to the big universities. Now, they're not teaching that outright, but there is a rising modern feminism in the country, and that's how it starts, you know. I heard a couple of very few people talking about, you know, dismantling the patriarchal system in the country, and that's a start. All right, let's move on to the fourth on his list. He said, as far as I can tell, there are no overt hiring biases against men. I could be wrong on that one. No, I think actually a lot of companies would probably prefer men if the men have more education. I think a lot of women get hired because they are more educated than, you know, a lot of a lot more women have college education. But I think if it's just preference, they would probably prefer to hire men because, again, this is still a very traditional country. A lot of women do end up getting married and having children. And some companies, when they think of investments, they think like, well, a couple years from now, she might end up leaving, this career. But men, obviously, they're more stable when it comes to, establishing the career because they don't really have, they're not gonna get pregnant. Okay, that's another conversation. All right, so yes, I agree with that one. Okay, next on his list, he said, Filipinas do not end the lives of their unborn by the millions. Well, that's a very good point. Um, Abortion remains to be illegal in the country, and I don't think it will ever be legalized in the country, at least for the next couple of decades. But here's one thing, I'm not sure if I should be sharing this story. This is where you're gonna see some contradiction. Even though it is widely, a majority of the population agree that this is wrong. Okay, of course you can disagree with that, but majority of Filipinos agree that this is wrong. And those who do that, they are not out there proud talking about it. That is the big difference. They are not proud saying, I am for this. And even those who resort to that, they're actually not for it. Now, you will see a little bit of contradiction on this. Let me tell you a bit of a story. Now, in Quiapo, Manila, there's this very old Catholic church that's very popular because outside of the church, there's a lot of, you know, there's like a flea market, and I actually been there a couple of times when I was in Manila. I'm not Catholic, but it's nice to shop in the area. Now, of course, the Catholic Church is very anti-abortion, but when you get out of church, literally just by beside the church and at the back of the church, you will see a lot of people selling, herbs that you can use for that specifically. So the big difference is that women are not out there proud that they've committed that. That is the big difference. And that's actually one reason why there's a lot of single mothers in the Philippines. Because someone actually mentioned this to me. Yes, that's one reason. Because a lot of women, they prefer to keep the baby. Now, obviously, everybody's opinion on this is gonna be different. Some people would think, well, that's not good because you now have a very high number of, single motherhood. But for majority of Filipinos, it is not acceptable, and they would rather take responsibility for that child, even though that will mean they're going to be single mother. Okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. He said, divorce is not a huge money-making industry that takes money from men. Well, divorce is still illegal in the country, and I don't think it will pass anytime soon. They've been trying to pass divorce in the country, but as far as right now, it's still illegal. So there's no money in divorce. Number 7, he said, men are not jailed for failing to be able to support a family. Yes, that's not in force, but there's now laws in the Philippines where men will have to it's becoming more of a, actually there's a lot of people going to tulpo trying to ask help for this because there's a lot of men in the Philippines who have so many children outside of marriage. I'm not saying all, of course, but there's a big population. There are people who got in trouble for this because there is now a law against, not supporting your children. So I'd say it's not enforced because a lot of men don't have a job. But for those who have a job, I mean, they're going to get you, especially if you work for a company where they can go directly through that agency or your company to get that support. All right, let's go to number 8. Okay, the next one. He said, men are not fired from jobs on the word of a woman alone, with no supporting evidence. I also could be wrong on this. I think you're right on this one because I've seen cases like this with Tulpo. I mean, they do need evidence to just actually, in fact, Tulpo even have said this a couple of times. Like, we got to make sure that your accusations is correct. You have to provide evidence because, do you really want him to lose his job? That kind of, I mean, that conversation happened on his program. So you're right on this one. The next one, he said, when I saw this one, I thought it was kind of funny. He said, most Filipinas do not deliberately make themselves as unattractive as possible by cutting their hair short, pursing their faces, coloring their hair weird, becoming obese, and dressing in baggy clothes. Well, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there is still a very solid idea of beauty in the country. When Filipinos think of what beautiful is, they think of someone who's slim, someone who's, very feminine. I mean, that's very appreciated in the country. All right, so number 11, he said, most Filipinas support traditional gender roles. I agree with this one. And in fact, a lot of them would probably prefer that lifestyle if given the chance. Okay, number 12, and this is the last one on his list. He said, most Filipinas follow God and want their husbands or boyfriends to do the same. At least majority of Filipinas I personally know, yes. Majority of the population is still very religious. There's a lot of Catholics in the country. There's also a lot of evangelical churches. But it's also undeniable that it's becoming less religious, to be very honest. But I can agree to that. At least majority of Filipinas I personally know, they are very religious. They want to find a man who's going to be a good spiritual leader, at least in the household. And so I can agree to that. All right, those are his comments. And I thank you guys for, sharing your opinion. And I appreciate that. I don't always respond to comments because I'm actually very busy. That's why I make a lot of my videos very early in the morning, right when I get up before the toddler gets up. All right. All right. I'm going to end this video here. I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye, everyone.